Hi everyone, and welcome to the Business Bubble podcast. Today we have a guest. His name is Matej. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, but hi Matej, and how have you been?
Hey James, thanks for invite. You pronounce it pretty good, but you can call me Matt. It's usually
Okay,
easier.
Matt. Awesome, awesome. Matt, can we get a little introduction about yourself, what you do, your line of work, your industry, and um, some other things, some other peculiar things about you that might be interesting to know.
Of course, yeah. I will try to make it short. So for a long time, I was in consulting. Then I actually explored blockchain space. So I tried startup in the space as well. Didn't work very well, but that's basically where I met Sam, one of your co-hosts of this podcast.
Yeah.
And basically, I tried a lot of things around the technology consulting, but the one thing that I was doing over the last 10 years is actually investing. And as I kind of like get deeper and deeper into the space of Web3, I kind of realized that this is really something that resonates with me the most. So right now, I'm more focusing on the investing part, and I have a newsletter that I'm writing because basically first year I lost a lot of money in crypto, and over the time I hear a lot of stories from people that basically they repeated the same mistakes as I did, right? I think it's kind of like common to all of us in the crypto space that at first we kind of lose money, or the other case we make a lot of money but then we lose it anyway because we are kind of greedy, speculation, we don't know what we are doing. So that kind of like
Yeah.
made me think that, okay, so I want to try and change it a little bit. So that's why I started writing the newsletter in my free time. And I'm also involved with two investment funds, two hedge funds, and I still do a little bit of consulting as well.
Awesome. That is a pretty interesting career you've had for a few years. And today we kind of like have some a conversation around crypto, around Bitcoin, and around like the latest development in the whole blockchain and Web3 space. I think over the past 3 years, we've had like a roller coaster of ups and down. The 2021 bull market was like pretty significant in terms of investment, in terms of also things that didn't turn out to be great, and a lot of fraudulent activities happening in the space. At the same time, a lot of development happening in the space too. And it has definitely caught the people's attention this time around. 2021 was like a major turning point for crypto. It caught a lot of people's attention, especially institutional investors. And I think crypto is entering to a maturity phase. And there are a lot of development that happened over the past 3 months. There was like the Bitcoin approved ETF that happened with some players like BlackRock, Van Eyck, ARK Invest. Um, can you tell us the significance of what the approved Bitcoin ETF has on capital markets generally, especially for institutional investors, and who their major LPs are in terms of pension funds or 401k and all of that? What are the potential impacts it will have in the capital market?
Yeah, that's amazing question and really good topic. I think we can talk for a long time. So one thing like disapproval of the ETF, I think is really important because it shows kind of like a mark of approval or legitimacy to the asset. So suddenly, people that were really skeptic till now, they now kind of like see, okay, so if really like the big asset managers, like you mentioned, BlackRock, OneEck, and Fidelity, and all the other guys, if they are actually considering it as a real legit asset, maybe there is something into it, right? And that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that usually like when they start thinking about it, they might open actually the one pager of the fund, or start doing a little bit of the research more than just, okay, yeah, I heard it
Yes.
somewhere. And suddenly they can realize, oh, but hey, like the whole crypto market is actually bigger than silver, right? I mean, like Bitcoin itself is attacking 1 billion market cap, so 1 trillion, sorry. So that's a really like a huge market. It's not just like some speculative bubble. They can just call it that anyway, right? It's a really big market. I think that this is really important from this side. And then the other side of the adoption is really, as you mentioned, like on the retail side, because up till now it still was a little challenging to get in the game, because you could of course do the, let's say, crypto way and do your wallet, manage the seed phrase or the keys, etc. But this was really challenging for most of the users. So that was really holding them back. And then the other option that already exists for many years, but most of the users, and I'm still surprised that most of the users are not actually aware of it, how simple it is to open an account on some centralized exchange, right? I mean, Binance, Bybit, Kraken, anything, it's kind of like 2, 3, up to 5 minute process to open uh, the account there, and it's much easier than opening account with regular broker if you're not thinking about
Yeah.
apps like Robinhood. But coming back to the adoption, so now really like when your banker can call you and start offering Bitcoin, that's the point when it really like all of the retail investors are suddenly open to the asset, and they can actually invest through it through their bank, through kind of really like all of the different channels that they are using today. So that's definitely also an important milestone. And last thing on this topic, I think, is the volumes. It's crazy how much money actually flowed in those ETFs in the first
Yeah.
few days and even up till now. I was checking
Yeah.
the numbers like on Thursday, I think, or Wednesday, and the BlackRock fund, the Bitcoin ETF, is actually ranked 5 on the whole like ETF list. So there are like 3 SAP funds above, one global
Wow.
market ETF, and then the fifth one is the BlackRock. I mean, that's how
Wow.
big
That's a lot.
the ETF is exactly.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. And I think I'm quite concerned about the fee structures when it comes to those ETFs. I really don't really know how it works. And can you please like explain a little bit on the fee structure on those ETFs?
Yeah, so the fee structures are quite simple. So usually the fund is charging some management fee, right? So basically you pay some money for being able to invest in the asset, and it doesn't matter if the fund itself is like growing or declining. You are paying the fee anyway. What was really interesting is that the basically the original player in the space, Grayscale, they kind of like they stick with something like 1.5% fee, which is crazy high compared to the other phones that are charging something between 0.2 and 0.5. I mean, I don't understand why should any investor pay like triple the price and the fee for basically the same product, maybe even like a
Yeah,
little worse product, because BlackRock still has much more capital and they are not so much spread in the crypto space. So I would say there's maybe even slightly less risk than with the Grayscale. So we saw also like that once the gates were open, a lot of capital was going out from Grayscale to the other phones, because yeah, why should you pay 1.5 where you can pay
yeah,
0.3?
yeah. That is very interesting. What has been what would be the turning point for Bitcoin, especially in the sense that the promise of Bitcoin over the years was that it will overtake the US dollar as a reserve currency for the world. Where do you think that would happen? Because we're really not seeing that happening currently, and we've really seen we've actually seen Bitcoin more acting like gold and not necessarily like a currency like the US dollar. When will that promise come to pass?
I think this is a little unpopular opinion, but I don't think it will really happen with Bitcoin. I don't see it as the currency. I think it's more on the side of the store of value, let's say. So more like the digital gold rather than the currency, because it's still pretty slow. and expensive to pay with Bitcoin. So, for example, if I should choose between gold and Bitcoin, I would honestly choose Bitcoin because I feel that even if things go wrong, people are already used to pay and accept Bitcoin. But with gold, like everyone is saying, yeah, but that's the safest asset, right? Because if things go wrong, you can pay with gold, but who would accept gold today, right?
Yep.
You can't just go to a store with like a piece of gold and say, hey, this is gold, like give me something for it,
Yep.
right? It just doesn't exist. But with Bitcoin, pretty much everyone knows roughly what's the price of Bitcoin, and we have many stores that are accepting. I mean, in Czech Republic, you can buy car with Bitcoin, for example. So there are some stores accepting Bitcoin, but there are very little stores that are able to tell you if your gold is legit or not, or like if it's a real gold or not, evaluate the price of the gold, and then actually give you something in exchange for it.
Yeah. Very well spoken. Currently the S&P currently is at 5,000, and the stock market seems to be raging very high at an all-time high right now. The Magnificent Seven stocks are also very going up. And I kind of like saw you, you know, from before you enter into Web3 and crypto, you were actually studying traditional finance market a lot. And from your point of view, where do you see the not just the US stock market, but the US economy and the global economy going forward in the sense that we could be trending towards inflation again in the near future because there's currently a lot of deficits payment to the debt that needs to be paid. US debt is like currently at $34 trillion dollars. And other currency also are like Argentina a couple of years ago. Other countries are like Argentina way towards like a couple of years ago. Where do you think the world would go forward? In the sense that there might not be like a real solution to de-escalate all the inflated assets and asset class and the bubbles we've had in all the asset class today. There might not necessarily be a real path forward to de-escalate that. I think things might just continue to inflate until there until something actually finally breaks. What do you think? What do you think could happen eventually from all of this after bubbles?
I think you said it exactly right. Something usually breaks before it gets like better. So when it comes to the currency itself, I think that yeah, the debt is just too high. The U.S. government or like the Fed is they don't really have many options than to just put on the printing machine again at some point because they need to refinance their debt. And this is not just US, that's the other economies as well. So at some point, there will need to be some extra liquidity from the central bank here, and that would mean that the dollar would get devalued a little bit. It will get a little less strong, like weaker, right? So in terms of the market, I think it's really expensive to be honest. Like for a few months, I'm just thinking like that's crazy high already compared
Yep,
to the fundamentals behind. But on the other side, people are just expecting that the extra money will come, and it will come. So no matter how big problems are around, like it will come and it will boost the market. It's already
yep,
happening in China, which is in big trouble. I mean, they have still the real estate crisis. The two of the biggest developers in China have $500 billion debt, and they are crashing. The Evergrande is already like was a court rule that it should be liquidated. So it's really like a huge trouble that's happening there. The stock market is crashing. It's on like 10-year lows, the Chinese stock exchange. And China is already pumping money into the economy. So it's
yep,
already happening overseas. And the US will do the same. So that's really like, it looks bad, but in the end, the market will go up. So what
yep,
I expect, like in the short term, is maybe some correction because I still feel that the SAP is kind of like too high now. But in the long term, which is like to 2 years and longer, it doesn't really matter because the markets will go up eventually anyway. So
Yep.
for the long-term investors, it will actually result in some good buying opportunities, and that's it. And
Yep.
also,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's really like a good reason not to hold currency for too long because
Yep.
it's just not gonna stay the same in the years to come.
Yep. Do you still invest, by the way, in the stock market?
I do, but not really actively. So I have
Okay.
passive portfolio there. A little bit from time to time, I open some position, but really only long term, and it's all like a defensive dividend paying stocks. And then I have my portfolio that's kind of like balanced over the US stocks, some emerging markets, some bonds, and some commodities. So it's kind of like a bigger piece that I'm trying to maintain there.
Yep.
But when it comes to some analyzing and really like playing with the portfolio, that's what I do in crypto for last 8 9 months.
Yep. That is interesting. I kind of wanted to ask you some questions actually outside crypto, but still I'll kind of like relate that a little bit to crypto. I think it's about universal basic income. I think we've had like a sort of experiment trying UBI in 2020 when we were in the lockdown and we started printing a lot of money and UBI quantitative easing and giving a lot of stimulus checks. And that kind of like led to inflation 12 months after. And we saw inflation in the US, in Europe, in other parts of the world as well. Um, where do you, how do you see UBI working with crypto? Is there a possibility for UBI to actually work with cryptocurrency, or um, it's simply not the case?
Hmm. That's an interesting thought there. So I believe the UBI is possible and it's not so distant, but I think it's more thanks to the technological advancement. So we have the crazy fast evolving AI. And when this merges with the robotics, so really like what Tesla is doing with their Optimus, then suddenly you really have a huge possibilities of some like a value creation that can actually enable this universal basic income in the longer run. I think crypto is not really necessary for this, but what crypto can enable is if you invest not so much right now, you can actually enable that income for yourself. So I don't think it's the UBI, but I think it's quite easy to get to some level where you can really get the basic income from crypto just by playing around. And even if you don't really do investing, you can just work with some projects there. And we have a lot of like airdrops and community driven rewards. So
Yep.
I think that this really like offers a lot of potential for
Yep.
anyone, especially from lower income countries where really like the income that these projects usually based in more like rich countries can offer can really like quickly secure this income for individuals.
Yep. That is interesting. I kind of like want to ask a question around NFC and Web3 before coming to crypto again. What went wrong with NFTs? At first, to be honest, I was skeptical of, JPEGs, selling, selling JPEGs online for a huge amount of money, and in some cases for millions of dollars. And, it was all shrouded around the idea of digital art, which there's a valid use case for art as a store of value and as an asset class. But what went wrong with NFTs that you think to be corrected? And do you actually think NFT can actually come back again into mainstream?
So I think like what went wrong is that the the NFT users or the crypto users, they are really like bunch of diggins, right? They are just flipping things. They don't really think about it. They just keep sending money somewhere, doing something, not really thinking about the stuff, and of course they get burned. It's from the first like crazy stories about the GameStop up till flipping the
Yeah.
JPEGs on OpenSea or any other marketplace. So this is just some crazy hype that happened and that kind of like disappeared a little. I still really believe in NFTs, and actually NFTs are the reason why I really dived into Web3, because for a long time I was associating blockchain with Bitcoin, and I kind of like completely missed the Ethereum line next to it. But when I heard about NFTs, I started exploring like what is it, and that actually unlocked me the Ethereum and the blockchain itself as a technology. And I think that NFTs are amazing because really the technology enables um, very easy and trustworthy secondary marketplaces, for example, where really it's not really just about the investing and art, but about some making our life easier. For
Yep.
example, by just buying tickets online.
Yep.
It's a huge trouble in Europe. We don't have a really like official reseller on the European level. So if there
Yep.
is a, for example, big show like some concert or Formula One race, for example, you really don't have so many options how to buy the ticket other
Yep.
than finding people on Facebook and kind of like trusting that that person will send you the real ticket.
Yep.
And this is what actually NFT really solves, right? So there are so many different use cases that the technology itself can solve, and I
Yep.
believe in it. When it comes to flipping JPEGs, it's a maybe good thing if you're like bored, but yeah, it's definitely not for everyone, and it's not really a way how to build your income or wealth.
Yeah. I think you just convinced me there on the use cases of NFT. I think I kind of like knew a little bit the use cases, but over the few 2 years, over the past 2 years, I think the negativity around NFT kind of like clouded my mind into NFT being for degens and for clicking monthly JPEG. Um, and it's very interesting what you actually said. Do you know if anybody is working on some of the solutions you mentioned, the use cases of NFT you mentioned? Do you think people are working on these solutions?
Sorry, can you repeat that? My headphones just disconnected. I didn't hear you.
I was talking about, like you were able to convince me on the use cases of NFTs, and over the past 2 years, due to the negativity around NFTs and about flipping of monkey JPEGs, I think it beclouded my mind on the use cases I knew about NFTs. And you kind of like made a very valid point there. And I kind of like I was wondering if there were players already working on similar solutions, for NFTs in the medical space, in the um, ticket and airport space, or in other spaces, in other verticals. Do you think there are players, people working on that already?
Yes, yes, definitely many of them. And the ticketing is something popular. So there are a couple of companies. We even have one here in Czech Republic is trying to build really like the ticketing app slash ecosystem for that. Ed Sheeran sold his concert in London in year 2021, I think, and it was fully sold by NFTs. So really, it's happening, and people are trying to find the best ways. I think for the last year, maybe 2 years, because of how the market crashed, people are really trying to avoid the NFTs. So what we see now
Yep.
in the more like traditional setups is that companies are saying that they are doing some way of digital collectibles or some form of digital something, digital ticket, digital whatever. And it seems that they are really trying to avoid the term NFT, but yet still they see the value in the technology itself. So they are trying. And there, I saw recently that there are already first airlines that are trying to sell their tickets as NFTs, which is also a very strong use case to me because right now there is really like no secondary market for airline
Yep.
tickets. So again, something where you can just tap into the technology and leverage it to really authenticate the originator of the ticket and make sure it's valid, right?
Yeah, interesting. I think NFT should be rebranded. Don't you think so? I just
Yeah.
wanted, yeah, I think it should be rebranded. Um, I wanted to ask, about Web3. I know you are a big player in Web3, and Web3 is a word that has ever confused me, and I'm very sure a lot of people don't really know what Web3 is all about. Uh, can you kind of like lay the foundation of what Web3 really, really is, and unpack Web3 and the use cases, like just like you explained for NFTs, can you do that for Web3 as well?
We'll try. So I think with Web3, it's difficult because there is no single definition, right? So like everyone has its own interpretation of that. So to me, the Web3 is really the next evolution of the internet. I'm sure that you heard it many times already. And what does it mean is that the first version was really starting with academics and researchers, then came World Wide Web. Suddenly, people started exploring the technology because before then it was really for IT folks. With World Wide Web, even less technical users could actually play with internet, and it gave the rise of the e-commerce and solutions like eBay, Amazon. So that's kind of like the first version, evolution, let's say, version, and it was very static. Then we saw a rise of social networks like Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, etc. And these actually introduced something new, and that was like really like the interactivity with the content. So that's the Web 2 version from early 2000s, still now, it's still there. And suddenly the internet and the content is not just static, and we are not just like consuming it, but we are creating it as well, and we are interacting with that. We are liking the content, we are sharing it, we are creating it, and there are some platforms that are actually enabling this and monetizing it, like Google, Facebook, etc. And now the Web3 is kind of like the next step, and there is a one point of view, and that's more like a philosophical, and that's this like read write own version, where basically the technology is more decentralized and people are kind of like directly incentivized to behave well and to work on the technology. So for example, Ethereum, right, it's built by just like people around the world. They are just started committing to the code, like to the version of Ethereum, and eventually started getting rewarded with ETH for doing so. So it's really like a lot of community driven projects, and also governed by the community. So in a Web3 way, if you would have, I don't know, let's say YouTube as a platform, then the creators on the platform would be able to set up the fees, the cut that the platform is getting from it, from the monetization part, and etc. etc. So that's like a one way. But the second way, and that's more important to me, I would say, is the technology. So that's really, and it's not just like crypto or blockchain, but it's also the AI and AR/VR. It's really like how it shifts our interaction with each other, with the technology, etc. So really like you have the blockchain that power the apps, but also you have augmented reality to help you speed up your learning, for example, if you want to
Yep.
something, or just kind of like gives you an extra dimension on top of your senses, right? Because you can see things and suddenly you see much more information about the things you see. Or if you are
Yep.
I saw a lot of great use cases in like how is it, in like factories, that workers have some AR devices, and they really see how they should fix something or assemble something, right? And the same with VR. It's just a whole new way how to connect with each other. So kids today hang out in the, let's say, metaverse, right? One third of American kids are actually playing Roblox. Once they are a little bit older, they play
Yep.
Fortnite. All of them are really like places where they socialize. And with VR, it's going to be even more powerful because suddenly you don't need to go out at all because you can see your friends in your
Yep.
Oculus or whatever. So yeah, that's a long answer, but that's pretty much how I
Yep.
see it.
I kind of like wanted to dive into, the metaverse a little bit. I think this is the second to the last question. And metaverse and gaming, like you read, I think you've read it spoke about Roblox and Fortnite. Do you think one of the next big thing can actually happen in crypto when it comes to crypto? Can the next big thing happen in metaverse/gaming?
Yeah, I think it's natural. So similar to the usage of NFTs in the secondary marketplaces, I think in gaming it just makes sense. It kind of like clicks together. I think we will see pretty soon first pilot of this technology. So we know that Ubisoft is playing a lot with the technology, trying to find the right angle, how to approach it. Gamers are very, very against it, but also there are some new projects that are supported by classical streamers. So I know that
Yep.
Dr. Disrespect has its own Web3 game that's coming up. Myth is supporting one of the Web3 games, and these are like I'm not so good with YouTubers and streamers, but these guys have like something around 4 million followers or subscribers.
Wow.
So it's really like big accounts, and they're doing it the right way. They show amazing game, and then just say, yeah, and by the way, it's powered by blockchain or NFTs, and you can do this with that because like I think the wrong approach is to go to the player and say, "Hey, do you want to play Web3 game?" and then show like Axie Infinity or some very
Yep.
basic pixel art game. Of course, they will say no. But if you come to the player and ask, "Hey, do you want to be able to rent the asset instead of buying it?" To be able to get your things from one game to another and use them in a different game so you are not really locked in one game you are playing but you can actually use it around. Do you want to have player profile that can track your achievement across different like gaming
Yep.
ecosystem? Suddenly you start getting yes, yes, yes to everything, right? Because they can see the value of this, and that's the way that we should think about it and communicate it to the traditional players to think about the advantages. And of course, like this can't really happen if you build a game that you are trying to sell to players that they need to buy NFT for $500 just to play the game. That will just not
Yep.
work because that's crazy, right? You can play AAA games for free today. Why should you pay
Yep.
$500 for some very B minus game?
Yep. So last question, and I know you're a big investor into the Web3, crypto, and blockchain space. Where do you see the next potential or the most untapped potential right now in the whole space? Like, where do you think it's going to come from? If you had to invest right now into the next big project, where do you think it's going to come from?
I I really believe in infrastructure. So, for example, I like the gaming and metaverse part. So, rather than trying to find the best game, I try to find the blockchain where the games will be played because that's easier. And also, it's very difficult to build a good game, even in traditional world. And Web3 just adds
Yep.
many layers of complexity on top of that. So I think that like the one advice would be to think more about the infrastructure and the big things and really trying to limit the risk because the beauty of Web3 is that like that there's money everywhere and even like the very safe assets, I would say like Bitcoin, they still do like 100% gains, right? So
Yep.
compared to like the traditional assets, that's crazy huge. So it's better to stick to the safe things and really limit the risk because the gains are still worth it. And it's really
Yep.
important not to lose the money. So that would be it.
Interesting. Um, by the way, what do you do for fun apart from work?
I'm
What do you do
hunting
for fun?
airdrops now.
What did you say?
Hunting airdrops now.
Okay, okay. Interesting. Um, it was actually fun talking to you. I really learned a lot, and I guess our audience would also really learn a lot. We kind of like have audience from 33 countries listening to our podcast. So I think it's pretty interesting to talk to you today. Um, I would also, if you would probably want to say one last word in terms of what you do, like probably um, the social media where we can find you, and how can people reach out to you if they need any help, and what you can offer to them. You can probably say it if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, like you can share my Twitter. It's Matt
Definitely.
Curda. So happy to. I have open DM. So if someone from your listener wants to reach out, feel free to. Then, as mentioned, I have the newsletter that I hope can help people actually start with the investing in the Web3 space and maybe limit some of the mistakes. So if they want to, you can also share the link. It's called metainvestor.gg. So of course they can go there. Otherwise, I guess the last thing is really just like be careful. The bull is running, so or it's coming. So it's really like there will be so many
Yep.
opportunities, but we need to really think about the risks. And I think like always cash out
Yep.
at some point because I know I have lost so many good investments because I just didn't cash out in the right time. So
Yep.
that's it. Thanks a lot, James. Really
Yeah.
appreciate
Thanks a lot
the
for
invite.
coming on the pod. Have a nice day. Take care.
Thanks. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah.